Hey, welcome back. Last time I remade my character controller and added weapons. In this video, I'm going to make some enemies and a first game mode. So, let's start developing. Me and my artist discussed the first enemy and we came into a conclusion that it should be a crowbar-wielding cyborg that can take some beating before dying. After a few sketches, modeling and texturing, the cyborg was ready. We decided to give it 2 attacks. One basic attack where the cyborg uses its crowbar to attack the player and does some damage. And another one where the cyborg charges at the player and does more damage. I began work with the crowbar enemy, and for the basic AI control, I used a finite state machine I made for another project and started setting it up. It took some time, but after a while I had an enemy that can stand still and react to hits. It even had a dead state. Next step was to get the enemy to move and follow waypoints. I took all the waypoint state I made a while ago and gave it to the cyborg, and our girl started walking. Great. But it wasn't without its fair share of bugs. For some reason, the Navmesh agent isn't stopping when it's supposed to stop. The script wasn't changing states correctly, so even in death, the cyborg kept moving. Now it works, and it's actually pretty satisfying to shoot at the cyborg. I wanted to try how it looks to make the cyborg walk with my procedural spider creature. And it looked pretty cool. But the enemy can't just walk and look menacingly at the player, right? It needs to fight! So, the next part was to set up the enemy attacks, which means adding the crowbar swing and the charge attack. Crowbar swing is going to be pretty straightforward, but the charge is going to take some work, because I have no idea how to make it. For the crowbar attack, I made the enemy to swing at the player if the player is in range, and if not, the enemy tries to close the gap by walking. Now, the trickier one, the charge attack. After doing some research, turns out I can just increase the movement speed of the Navmesh agent and return the movement speed back to normal after the charge. So, I did exactly that and added a box collider in front of the enemy. It's going to be used as a prototype charge attack damage zone. If the player gets caught in the zone, the player will get damaged and thrown away. After I got that sorted out, I started to add some sound effects, like walking and hit sound. For these, I used the Unity's animation event system. Now the enemies are kinda creepy and it's starting to feel like a game. Crowbar enemy is ready for prototyping, so it's time to switch to the projectile-based enemy. This enemy was way more straightforward to make. It doesn't have fancy close quarters attacks and charges. This boy just fires his guns and is done with it. Most of the code is the same as the first one, with changes to attack mechanics. This time, the enemy tries to get the weapon range and fire at the player when in range. Most of the creation went smoothly, but I had a few bugs at first. First of all, Blender exporting wasn't working correctly, and there were some animation related bugs. Another problem was the aiming was sped off and didn't work as intended, causing the enemy to spin around. The weapon cooldown didn't work either, causing the enemy to do Kamehameha forever at the player. Not ideal. After messing around with the code, the enemy worked quite nicely. I gave it the same sound treatment as the first one because I don't have any more sounds right now. But now I needed a place to fight the enemy, so I booted up Blender and started to make a map for the game mode. In this game mode, enemies will spawn in waves so I can balance and make the combat loop better. Good for playtesting. I wanted the map to have a lava lake around it. And in the end, the environment started to remind me of the ending scene from the end of Evangelion. So I went back to the original painting and took the colors from it. And it looked really cool. After the environment was ready, I started working on the enemy spawning system. Original one just spawned the same amount of enemies every round, but I wanted the enemy amount to increase. There was quite an easy solution to this, and it was to use the Unity's animation curves. The animation curve has 2 values, which I set up to be round index and the enemy amount. After that, I set up some item spawners and the map started to be playable. While playing around in the map, I noticed that shooting with guns was hard. Reason being that the shots came from the barrel of the gun and they were aimed using the barrel. So, I just switched the spawn point to the camera and now the shots are flying to the middle of the screen. A lot better. And there it is! A new map, game mode, 2 enemies and revamped weapon mechanic. Next time, I hope we have a new map to show you, scriptable object-based weapon system and more polished enemies. So, like and subscribe if you want to see more. Thank you for watching!